how's it going? If you're new to my channel, I want to say welcome. My name is Amber Stewart. I'm the owner of the Stew Project, where I help individuals maximize their living potential by simply taking emphasis on wellness. More specifically, I help individuals suffering from chronic stress, anxiety, depression, or chronic health issues, and I help them get past the blocks that are holding them back so they can live the life of their dreams in a body that they love. Now, I don't know if you watched my previous video, but I just want to say there's some changes that are going on around here. First off, I turned my health coach and life coach PSA series into podcasts on YouTube. So this is why it is like this. See, I have a little microphone now. And just a disclaimer, this video is going to be a little bit blurry on my end just because of the tech that I was using. So just bear with me as I go through these changes. They will get better over time, because before I was just recording it on my phone, but now with the new podcast and the interviews now, which is what I am doing today, there's going to be a little bit of changes. So I just wanted to give you this disclaimer before I get started with this interview, because I am super excited. In this one, actually, we're going to be talking about anxiety and common mistakes that people make when suffering from anxiety and tips to overcome it. So I am interviewing Anna, or Dow Nomad, on Instagram, and she does a wonderful job. She has been a psychologist for 10 years, and I'm just super excited for y'all to see this. So I hope you enjoy, but disclaimer, do not worry about my picture. Her picture is beautiful, but my picture is going to be a little blurry. So just bear with me for this one. I promise it will get better over time. So enjoy.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. And you?
I'm doing well. Glad to finally meet you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'm already recording. What is it? I don't know why my screen is in black and white.
You look very dramatic.
I guess so. I guess we're just gonna have the focus going to be on you today. Just have me fade to the background. All right, so welcome to joining me today. And I'm so glad you reached out to me, because honestly, I was trying to find ways to create new content for my YouTube channel, and so it just inspired me to start interviewing other professionals in the field. So thank you for that. And I guess we're just going to start to kick it off. So just tell me a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Anna, and I've been a psychologist for more than 10 years, since 2010. And I went into the sphere. I studied East-West psychology, so a combination, like a comparison between Western psychology and Eastern spiritual practices. So for me, that was life-changing in many, many ways. And yeah, I wanted to study psychology because I had anxiety myself. So I was like, I need to find the answer. And I found many answers on the path. I'll share them today. But yes, after my master's, I realized that I do want to be working holistically with people, that I want to work on a psychological level, but also on a level of mindfulness and embodiment that is so, so, so important, that we often miss in our everyday hectic life.
Yes. Now, so what are the common misconceptions that you feel that people have when it comes to Western medicine and Eastern holistic methods when it comes to mental health?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, speaking specifically about mental health, I think, so Western psychology is really, really great. There are many schools, but all of them tend to focus on either how the mind works or how emotions work. And they rarely unite the two. And the body, like all the embodiment practices, are like separate field. So I think one of the things, like one of the popular misconceptions is that you kind of just have to stick with one field. Like if you've chosen cognitive behavioral therapy, you just continue, or if you've chosen psychoanalysis for the next 20 years, you have your timetable. But in fact, I think it is about the holistic approach that is the most effective. And misconceptions about Eastern wisdom traditions, how I call them for me, which is Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism. I draw a lot of inspiration and a lot of practices from there as well, is that it's very difficult. It's difficult to understand, and that it's not practical. That, if I want to live this physical life, all this like meditation and yoga and qigong, like that's not for me. But in fact, you don't have to follow a spiritual path to benefit from Eastern wisdom traditions, because they really do teach us how to be at peace with ourselves, accepting the impermanence of life. So it's a worldview, like a philosophical position. So I think usually also people tell me you're either into like psychology and you're about making yourself like happy, or you're into Eastern or like some other religious or spiritual tradition, which is all about making you like enlightened, or finding the heaven or whatever.
Yeah.
In fact, they're both about the same. They're about us having the optimal experience, us having the authentic, true, purposeful life. And both Western psychology and Eastern spiritual traditions, they talk about that, and they help us reach this state of deep, deep self-acceptance and feeling that I'm all right, everything is good with me, and the world is also right. Like everything is good with the world. And this is the perspective when anxiety or like mental illness just cannot arise, because you trust yourself and you trust the world.
Yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of people forget, because I know I grew up in the South in America, and when it comes to like spirituality, they think that it is strictly between you and your heavenly creator. But honestly, spirituality is like your connectedness to yourself and those around you. And some people just tend to use religion as a tool to help guide them through navigating those relationships between themselves and the world around us. Because I don't know if you believe this, but I believe like all of us have a spiritual being inside of us. And so with that being said, it just helps us, because it's the mind, the body, and the spirit. But the spirit is just like something that connects all of us together. Because how else can you explain like those instances where it's like, I was just thinking about somebody and they just called me. And so it's just like a way for us to connect. And so when we disconnect our body from our mind, that can help cause anxiety and those other issues. And so the Tao and the Buddhism, that helps bring us back to that balance between accepting the outer world and accepting what's right in ourselves. So I totally agree with you. And I have started, for the most part, when I started health coaching, being mental health specialist and stuff, I was so into like cognitive behavior therapy, like you had mentioned, and just like the processes of how our brain works. But as you know, like sometimes just going by the book doesn't always work. And so you have to like feel your way through life, because life isn't always textbook. And so you really need that inner guidance, knowing how to control and work with that inner compass to know what you specifically need to feel better and balanced, to find peace within, because everybody finds peace differently. And I think learning how to balance the Western medicine and the Eastern approach to find that peace within is something that's really important. Now, when we talk about anxiety, can you tell me a little bit about how these two modalities can work together to help people overcome anxiety?
Mm-hmm. So anxiety, I think that is the plague of our civilization, because so many people who are meant to be having this beautiful, perfect Instagram type life actually have anxiety. It's very, very widespread. And so at the very basis, at the very core of this feeling, there's a feeling that something is wrong with me, that I'm not good enough. And that can happen, there can be two particular ways that can become very painful to us. So I'm not good enough, and thus I will not be loved. Or I'm not good enough, and thus I will not manage, I will not cope with the world. And so those are the two primary conflicts that we have deep inside of us. I mean, deep down in the subconscious mind, it's also all very simple and straightforward, not feeling loved and not feeling capable of solving the problem. And that gives rise to a lot of anxiety. So how does psychology and Eastern traditions help? So psychology helps to, first of all, in psychology, I would highlight two main approaches that I use. So one is depth psychology, where we work with the unconscious mind to bring out the, that part of us that is wounded, that doesn't feel that it deserves to be loved or that it is capable. And we heal it. Whether there was some trauma or if it's just like a certain type of education that the person was constantly told that, you're not good enough. Whatever the case, we can heal that. But this is like working, imagine it's like free diving, going very, very deep into your past, into your childhood, usually. But then we have to also come up into the surface and work with the mind, because the mind has a certain habits of thinking. And we need to also consciously restructure those habits and change them, make them healthier, which is like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, is very, very good with that. And the next step would be, and then we kind of move on, we breach into the Eastern systems that, I mean, for me, they give me a lot of inspiration. Also, I really like yoga and Qigong as part of the physical and like embodiment exercises. But even if we don't want to go too deep into like Eastern spirituality, we take mindfulness. Mindfulness being like the kind of the meditation, but without the ethics or like the belief system of Buddhism. And mindfulness really helps us to start enjoying the moment, to start, well, first of all, valuing the moment that we see in front of us right now. Secondly, trying to improve the moment, because, in our life, we always try to make life better for ourselves and others, this constant improvement. And the third one is to transcend the moment, to see it, that you, as you said, like your higher being is bigger than just this body, and be able to see yourself as something much more eternal than we're used to think about ourselves.
Yes, I totally agree. Hold on, let me see. Now, what common mistakes do you see people make when it comes to managing anxiety?
Mm-hmm. Well, first, two most common mistakes. First one is not to notice it at all, to think that it is normal, to think that this is life, this is how everybody is living. And yeah, like, of course, I can't concentrate. Of course, I have bad sleep, but that's life. Well, the fact is that it's not normal. Like, if you feel constantly hectic in your mind, if you can't concentrate, if you worry about little things, if you replay conversations over and over again, all those little things are little bells that, like, no, that it doesn't have to be like that. This is not for a human to just like stay stuck in his head worrying about all those things that can go wrong.
Yeah, what is it called? That monkey mind?
Exactly, yes. So yeah, and so like there is a healthy level of anxiety. Like, for example, if you're doing a public speaking, you're a little bit like anxious before you start. Like that is normal. It becomes a problem when, you're anxious, when you can't call a person you don't know on the phone and you feel like, I don't want to do it. Or if you constantly worry, like, am I going to have, you know, um, like when I come to a new group, is everybody going to like ignore me? Like worrying about that, or worrying about money, like constantly just thinking about it instead of doing something, just thinking, overthinking it and fearing it. So people think it's normal, but it's not. Like really, there are techniques to get out of those states, and you don't have to like spend your whole life in misery and anxiety. So yeah,
Yes.
that's the first.
I was gonna say, I know, because for a long time, before I became a coach, I suffered from anxiety for a long time. And I didn't really realize what it was until I started my journey into psychology and wellness. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I've been struggling. I didn't know. And so I think another mistake that a lot of people think is just something that um, anxiety is something that you just overcome rather quickly, that you can just like flip a switch and be okay with it. But it takes time to overcome anxiety. And what is it? I made a comment about it on one of my pages, is that it's like it's a light. There's an option of a light switch that turns on and off, but then there's a light dimmer where you just slowly turn the knob and it gets easy. It gets less. The light gets darker and darker. And so when you use the right techniques to address your anxiety, you like that dimmer, you just turn it down. And eventually, over time, because I mean, there are some things like you can never fully overcome anxiety simply because there always be things in your life that will spark it, because that flight or fight technique is not technique, but that mechanism in our body is something that is supposed to help us overall. But when we don't know how to regulate it, that's when anxiety sets in and it just takes over. So a lot of people would just think like, well, if I can't overcome it immediately, then I'm just going to just deal with it. And a lot of people just say like, well, it is what it is. If it's not one thing, it's another, or something like that. And so I think a lot of people need to know that if you start with the right techniques, then you're able to feel better. And it's a day by day process. And they may be good days and there may be bad days, but as long as you're consistent, you'll find yourself being more and more in control and learning how to control it. Now, that just leads me to ask you.
Can I add something to what you said?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. There's like a second most common like mistake when dealing with anxiety. So, when people realize that actually, I do have it, and they start, as you said, like doing, a certain exercise, and they of course expect very quick results, don't we all? Just
Yes.
like this. What happens, of course, is that we don't get quick results because it's a certain habit of thinking, so it takes time. And what happens then when a person doesn't manage to like overcome anxiety like this? He starts pushing down on himself, like blaming himself, like beating up on himself and being like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I control my thoughts? Why can't I control my emotions? Like I'm useless. And that's where like the self-beating comes, and that makes anxiety disproportionately worse. Like that just is like yeast for anxiety, like those kind of thoughts.
Yes. I
So
agree.
sometimes what happens is when a person starts on this path and then he just spirals into like way bigger anxiety because he starts noticing also all the things that is like wrong with him and tries to control it, and it doesn't work out and he gets frustrated. So self-perpetuating cycle. So the best advice here, and I've seen it in many of my clients, is self-kindness. As you said, it's a step-by-step, it's a day-by-day process. Yes, it's, you tread softly, you tread lightly. And because the more we try to control, the more we try to fix anxiety with force, I'm just going to concentrate and do it. Like that's just not going to work with anxiety. But if on the opposite, you relax, you let things be as they are, you let your feelings be as they are, you're kind to yourself, like your own best friend, like that type of relationship, that creates a different framework, and anxiety, it disappears much faster.
Yeah. Honestly, that's something that when you said your own best friend, because I know a lot of people, we will show more kindness and a benefit of the doubt to other people more so than we would ourselves.
Mhm.
And there is a show that I was watching on Apple TV called I think it was like Physical or something. And it just showed like this woman who had like a eating disorder, and she was just striving to start like her fitness career. And it just kept showing like her inner dialogue, and it was just so mean. And she just beat herself up in her head all the time. But to everybody else, she was nice. She was like, oh, it's okay, it's okay. But in her head, she was like, oh, you fat person, nobody's ever gonna like you, and this and that. And it's funny because, well, it's not funny, but it's alarming actually, because a lot of people deal with that on a daily basis, but because of whatever reason, they don't feel comfortable enough saying it out loud, and saying like, hey, this is how I speak to myself and this is not good. And I think that's one reason why it's so important for people to seek out therapy and to seek out other mental health professionals to help them realize like, hey, um, maybe the way that I have been talking to myself, or the behaviors or actions um, aren't right, and that's okay. But I still need to find better ways to cope instead of just like trying to just get by. But do you have any techniques or tips that you want to offer to help individuals suffering from anxiety?
I do a lot. Oh, wait, let me think which one uh, the best. So, okay, so let's say let's imagine a situation where a person is getting into like an anxious episode.
Mhm.
So, sometimes we have like, low burning anxiety that is like a quiet voice throughout the day. But here I will talk about a situation where a person is like on a verge of like a real, like really spiraling down into anxiety. So here, it's important, a couple of things. First, it's important not to be afraid of falling into anxiety, because if we know that we can spiral into like a panic attack, we start fearing it, we start contracting, and that brings it closer, that like makes it inevitable essentially. So what we do on the first step is we just realize that, you know what, even if I do have another panic attack, even if I do have like another anxious episode and I'll be like for 2 hours, I don't know, crying or something, like it's okay. Like it is okay. So the first thing is we don't like push anxiety away. Like we don't say, go away, like you're horrible.
Mhm.
We're like, okay, you're here.
Yeah, don't fight it.
Yes, we don't fight it. So we just accept that this is going to, this might happen. That there's a chance that I'll have a panic attack. And so we think about it calmly, like with equanimity as much as possible. Our second step is to switch our attention, to change our attention to something else. What works well here? So, for example, I like to use essential oils. So I put like a drop here, spread it in my hands, and breathe in. And this creates, because smells are a sense that we use the least, and this being like being like what is the word, like being encompassed,
Okay,
compassed
yeah.
compassed by the
Yes.
smell. It's like it helps us to change the mental state.
Yeah, it kind of changes our focus a little bit.
Yeah. Hmm. So that is the first, like it gives us like the mind something to cling on to concentrate on like a smell, and choose a smell that you like. But like lavender, it's a classic, to calm yourself down. So
Mhm.
then after you've done that, or just do a little meditation. Meditation is super, super simple, very easy. It's literally one breath meditation. So all that is asked is to be conscious of just one breath. So this is your task, just one breath. And that is easy. Everybody can do it, no doubt here. Just one breath, you're fully conscious with it. And then another one. And you continue just being conscious to one breath at a time, one step at a time. You don't think I need a 10-minute meditation. You're just like, no, it's one breath at a time. And as you do this, most people, like 90% of people, will start noticing that their breathing is becoming slower and deeper. And that is good. And if you're like the 10% that don't notice it, then you try to do it, like make it a little bit longer, your breath.
Mm-hmm.
And bring your attention to your belly, because that helps us ground. So first, bring your attention to the belly and just concentrate on how your belly moves. It helps us connect with our vital force. And then move your attention to your sense of whether you're standing, so it's soles of your feet, or if you're sitting, your bum, like where you touch the surface of the earth or the chair. So this is the place where we're most grounded. And we focus our attention on this. We really try to move from all those thoughts, blah, 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 into I feel grounded. I feel like a tree. I feel like there are roots coming out of my feet or of my bum, and we're like grounding into the earth. And so those are just like a couple of like small meditations, like really quick ones that you can do to switch your attention from the panic attack, or like from anxiety episode, or from an episode of like self-blaming or negative thought, self-talk, into yourself. So we, in this particular example, we use the body as the anchor to anchor us in the present moment, and so that our attention doesn't spiral out of control.
I think that's so important because there are two things I want to mention. One, when it comes to the breath, first of all, breathing is so important because it's one of the main mechanisms that our body uses to disengage the sympathetic nervous system, which causes the flight or fight. So it activates the parasympathetic nervous system. And so once you're starting, and what is it? Because once you start getting to that fight or flight, those hormones, it just gets like that downward spiral and just gets worse and worse and worse. And so once you're able to cut through that feedback loop and reverse it with that breath, then you can finally calm down and you can focus on something. And that's when focusing on your body steps in, because you're then becoming aware of all those other, not all those other senses, but become aware of your senses. Like you said, grounding yourself. So you're becoming aware of your surroundings and the sense of smell. And so it takes your focus off of everything else. And another thing I want to point out, why I feel that, because breath is so important. And I've noticed that a lot of people tend to smoke as a way to cope with anxiety or things. And it's kind of a bad coping mechanism. And just as, but I think it kind of messes us up because when it comes to the smoking, it kind of, well, one, it helps us to engage in the breathing mechanism, but it does it in a negative way. So if you're somebody that uses smoking as a way to cope with anxiety, there are other ways like aromatherapy you can use to help you wean yourself off smoking, but still use that sense of breath to help you feel better and calm down from that anxiety or those panic attacks. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap things up?
Yeah, just like a quick thing about the, the vagus nerve, like you mentioned, the sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system. And I wanted to bridge it a little bit with the Eastern traditions. So, you know, the vagus nerve is like, it's like moving us all around our body. And one of the exercises to help turn on the vagus nerve, like the parasympathetic nervous system, is humming. So something like, because it creates this like vibration in our throat and that relaxes them. Yeah. But
Yes.
basically, a lot of yogic breathing exercises, they're all like so for example, in yoga, we even use like Ujjayi breathing, which is like that type of breathing, like very
Yes.
low sound intensity that helps activate it. And that's why, well, partially why in yoga we feel so like quickly relaxed. So it's just
Yes.
also a useful technique. Yeah, so breathing, like a little bit of a voice coming out.
Yes. I wanted to say, because I have been delving into chakra healing. And so to take that a step further, when it comes to humming, you can use those root words with the chakras. Like if it's your root chakra, use lamb or Om. That's one of the ones that a lot of people know. Like a lot of people, they struggle like, oh, but honestly, it really does work. And
Yes, it does.
there's also other hand gestures that you can use to help activate um, the calming sensations, or to just take the humming and the breathing to the next step and integrate all of those senses. Because once you're focusing on all the senses, then you're bringing your body back into alignment so that you can move forward through whatever situation you're going through, being more in control of your body. So yes, now, do you have any programs or anything, as in case anybody wants to work with you, how can we contact you?
So I can be contacted on my Instagram or
Mhm.
on my website. And what I offer is, so one thing is something called anxiety audit. So because anxiety often has very specific, well, it has very specific reasons always. Most often it is something to do, there's often like trauma involved, and also like negative self-beliefs that stem from childhood usually. But there can be some other versions. So everyone is very individual. So what I offer in anxiety audit, it's a 2-hour session where we talk very deeply about the root causes of anxiety of a particular client and see how exactly he or she should work with it. So like, what is the problem and what are the possible ways to deal with it? This program is very good for people who like to work independently, you know, who need my expertise to show them the way, and then they're like, yeah, now I can go. And as part of this anxiety audit, there is also like on meditation that I do. So I'm a big fan of meditations, and there's this one
I'm right
particular
there with you.
that is so powerful. It is just like mind-blowingly powerful. So, and we do it together in a session, and the recording is left, so a person can come back to it anytime. And plus, I'm available for 4 more weeks after the call, like to answer questions. And of course, I also do individual work. It's like, you know, monthly or 10-week courses that I really am helping for people to understand how anxiety works, to see where their anxiety comes from, have tools and practices that clear that, and learn together to live a new life, like to have the sense of inner freedom, which I think is our like God-given right.
Right.
And the third thing that is starting actually pretty soon on 31st of October is my online educational course. It's called Tao Nomad. It's 4 week long. It's a course about how to rewire your brain from anxiety to inner freedom. It's for people who like to study, who like to understand, and it is something that creates very good community, because working individually is like very powerful and very effective, incredibly effective. But working in a group, you have the sense of community. You know that you're not
Yes.
alone.
Yes.
That is so, so, so valuable, and it really helps to speed up the healing process.
Yes, I totally agree. And awesome. So thank you very much, Anna, for speaking with me today. It has been a real pleasure. And I look forward to seeing you do amazing things. And I love the work that you're doing. And hopefully, we will talk again soon. And if anybody is interested in one of your programs, be sure to go and visit her Instagram, go to her website, and sign up because I know it's coming up soon. And so, thank you so much for your time, and you have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.